Hope is the belief that something positive can happen. Dictionaries have long definitions that are wrong. They basically say hope is the desire for and the expectation of fulfillment of something. And that's specific hope. That's like, I hope I get into Yale. And it's a trap for 3 reasons. It sets you up for failure if you don't get it. But it also blinds you to gratitude, to the positive things that happen every day that are short of your goal. And it blinds you to the chance for success that is bigger than your goal. When you have this myopic, specific hope focus, it's not what you need to tackle big problems. You need this. So I want to show you through my story in 2 instances of where hope played a role. I needed a surgery. There wasn't one. I spent a year looking, and basically the best information I was able to come up with after a year, my breakthrough was this. The surgery was possible in rats, according to these articles and this biology professor, and the best human surgeons in the world told me it was not possible in people. So it would have been perfectly logical for me to take all of that information and to come to this conclusion. Lucky rats. If I was a rat, I could have the surgery I needed. If I was a rat, I could get better. Lucky rats. There's no flaw in that logic. That is absolutely fact-based, based on the best information we have. Now what happens when you inject hope into that scenario? We took something that was categorically impossible, and now it was possible in rats. And I say, what are the chances that this is a fluke, that this thing that people think is impossible is possible in rats and nowhere else, nothing else? So to me, that was a driver. To the doctors, it was like, everything gives rats cancer, let's go on with our day. This is not transformative. But I kept digging. And what I came up with was it was possible in rats, and then it was possible in cats. And so to do research on a person, you have to go in front of an institutional review board and get funding and all of this. And to do research on an animal, it's the same. You've got to go in front of an institutional review board. The only difference is the animal doesn't have to be better off at the end. But when talking with my ethicists, something that's deceased is no longer an animal subject. So I reached out to a veterinary pathologist at Mizzou, and I asked him to do the rat surgery on a cat because we couldn't find out how it had been done. And so he tried it. And so that's the scalpel he used, and he was able to take the medulla from the cortex by slicing into it and squeezing it like a pimple. Now that was awesome, and everybody wanted to see the pictures. And so I sent him off. But the very next day, he tried the same surgery on a small, freshly dead pig, and it failed. I talked to my comparative anatomy expert at the University of Minnesota, who is, again, not a doctor, just a PhD, and he says to me, rat and cat adrenals are fatty, and human and pig adrenals have more connective tissue. The texture's different, and that's why it didn't work. So from that information, it was perfectly plausible for me to come back to the same conclusion. Everybody's right, lucky rats. But the way I looked at it was, this is possible in a 9-ounce rat and a 9-pound cat. And then I found the dog study, and now so we're at 60 pounds, which is the size of a 4th grader. And so each step of the way, hope was necessary. It wasn't just what was the turning point and why were you so hopeful. It was always hopeful. I want to leave you with this. When you face problems, you are going to have an orientation. What is it? If you were a college athlete, you might be very confident about physical challenges. But what about an interpersonal one? If you don't choose your mindset, what will it be? And will it always be the same? So when I face a problem, I have to choose to face, if I want to solve it, I choose to face it with hope. And when I start there, it doesn't change the facts, and it doesn't change the likelihood that something will happen, but it does change your assessment of things and your assessment of what's possible. And when you do that, it can mean everything. You can end up living a life that's the equivalent of lucky rats and having no idea that there was something else right there. So if you leave with anything, leave with this. Hope is the belief that something positive can happen. And that is the first step to solving any problem. Thank you.